president, I say, no, seriously, who is your pick for attorney general? Because this pick is a middle finger to Democrats and sane Republicans. And it's not being panned only by Democrats, Aaron. My Republican friends in the House are also clowning this pick. They're saying it publicly, as you just read off, but they're also saying it privately. And that was the mood earlier at the Capitol. And so, Donald Trump, not known for having a sense of humor, credit to you. You landed a good joke on the country. But this is a position, considering what it oversees: counterterrorism, money laundering, public corruption, child trafficking. It's worthy of being taken seriously. And also should tell you everything about Matt Gaetz, that he would allow himself to be used by the president to try and own the libs with something that we know is never going to pass in the Senate. Well, to the
Israel-Palestine, where in a place like Dearborn, we saw a lot of Arabs understandably frustrated and enraged by what Biden and Harris did to Gaza, armed Netanyahu. Some of them, and I interviewed one of the imams from Michigan, fell into the trap of thinking Donald Trump would be not as bad or equally as bad or better. And we're seeing with Huckabee, I mean, Huckabee, Joy, and your intro is so important there. He's not just to call him an extremist is an insult to other extremists. Right? He's so extreme, he makes Benjamin Netanyahu look moderate on Palestine. He makes George W. Bush look moderate on issues of war and peace. In 2008, Joy, Mike Huckabee criticized George Bush for setting a timetable for withdrawal from Iraq. He wanted to stay in Iraq for longer. He's a big Iraq war guy. And on Palestine, as you say, he calls himself an unreformed, unapologetic Zionist. He believes God gave the land only to the Jews. He's a religious fanatic. He refuses to admit that there's a Palestinian people. He says there's no occupation, no settlements, no West Bank, only Judea and Samaria. He wants one state, a Jewish state, no Palestinian state. It's a disaster in many ways. Obviously, the Palestinians are already living through a disaster in Gaza. And then the West Bank, it's only going to get worse.
There's no question he's a leader of our party. So now he's got a mission statement, his mission and his goals and objectives, whatever that is, we need to embrace it. All of it. Every single word. If Donald Trump says jump 3 feet high and scratch your head, we all jump 3 feet high and scratch our heads. That's it. There's no question.
Wow. So Austin, I just want you to jump only 2 feet. You don't have to go 3 feet, and you don't have to scratch that bald head of yours.
This is why I wear a hat on the air. Not all of us are blessed to have hair like you. Hey, good morning, man. I mean, think about it.
Fox. This is a Fox News cabinet.
Yeah. Stacey, it's been 10 days. We're at the start of the 10th day of Donald Trump being the next president-elect of the United States. And look how crazy and off the rails it is already. But honestly, is anybody surprised? He told us, we all know how much he values, loyalty, dedication to him, putting him up on a pedestal. And no one should be surprised that these are the types of people that he is appointing to key positions. Now, let me say on Governor Huckabee, I think he is qualified to be the U.S. ambassador to Israel. I don't agree with his policies, but at least you can make the argument that former governor. I think he's held other cabinet. I don't know if he held a cabinet post, but he's held several government positions. So I could kind of make the argument that with him, he's qualified to be the U.S. ambassador. At least Stefanik, what foreign policy experience does she bring to the table to be the U.S. ambassador to the United Nations? This guy, out of Florida. I mean, what a joke! What a joke!
Here's the thing. So there's a couple of things on that. One, so he is someone that the House and others have been investigating, Matt Gaetz, that is, on allegedly sexual assaulting children, young people, underage people. And Trump is a 34 times convicted felon. So
thank you.
You are who you hang out with.
Character doesn't
matter. And also, Also, the other part of that is the fact that the House Ethics Committee says they're going ahead and release the report on Matt Gaetz today. And
Oh,
so
really?
we are looking forward to that and what could come of this. It could be so bad that even Republicans can't confirm him, and in the Senate, they may refuse to confirm him. Now he's resigned his seat in Congress. They can't confirm him, so maybe this is another way of just getting him out altogether, because they won't. If they don't confirm him, he's done.
Yeah, and but I don't want to give Republicans a pat on the back for doing what they
Right.
may very well do when they have elected Donald Trump to be the 47th president of the United States. Republicans, always looking for an opportunity, reason to give credit to themselves. Well, we did the right thing. Yeah, you did the right thing, perhaps with him, but you didn't do the right thing on the national ticket. So I don't really give them a pass on that. And think about it, Stacey. The audacity, the nerve of Trump to nominate, at least announce that he's going to formally nominate him to be the Attorney General of the United States is a big FU to the Justice Department and to all Americans.
It also, to me, it also underscores, it really underscores or highlights how bad Joe Biden failed by picking Merrick Garland.
Oh,
It really, because people, well, I want to play fair. Garland he was going to be Supreme Court judge, and blah blah blah. Let's be fair. Let's when they go low, we go high, and look where it's gotten you. Look
hmm
where it's
hmm
gotten you, folks. Today, at the top of the hour, we expected to be joined by Dana Frank, USA Today best-selling author of Get Up and Get It On, a Black entrepreneur's lessons on creating legacy and wealth. She's also the niece of the late great Quincy Jones. So we are
Okay.
looking forward to her joining us. Just a few things before then, Austin, I want to talk about with you. Sundown towns is one of the things I'd like to talk to you about. Trump has proposed, of course, a devastating agenda that includes dismantling the Department of Justice's Civil Rights Division, ending federal oversight that has long been essential for marginalized communities, and he's pledged to grant police officers complete immunity in cases involving unarmed citizens, um, basically pushing us back to Jim Crow. And we know too, here's the thing, we also know that Trump also held many rallies in sundown towns, and
Now,
some who may have forgotten sundown towns, as Black people, we don't forget that, but they have never gone away. Many of them. In fact, now there's a concern that more towns, more cities will become sundown towns, and more areas, I should say, will become more sundown towns. Um, that is a real concern, Austin, and wanted to provide some key strategies, and maybe you can think of some strategies as well. But one of the things that we would urge Black motorists is to stay informed on local and national policies, and understanding and keeping track of changes at both state and federal levels. I think that's crucial, because you have the NAACP, ACLU, and Equal Justice Initiative. They regularly provide these type of resources.
yeah, I mean, absolutely. NAACP, ACLU, if you're not involved, get involved. If you're not reading their newsletters or familiar with their websites, become. But again, Stacey, I hate to be so negative, but these are things that should have been done before, in order to prevent the clear direction that this country is going in. We all had a responsibility to read Project 2025. But having said that, this is where we are, and I think that that is the most proactive step that we can take. Align yourselves, get to know your local, state, and federal elected officials, become involved.
Hmm.
So those are things that immediately come to mind. If you weren't political before, please become political and
At
active
least
now.
educate yourself, right?
Exactly,
On especially
exactly.
on legal preparedness, what your rights are, because one of the things you got to always remember, until otherwise, the Constitution still stands, and so educate yourself when dealing with law enforcement. You know, we always have to be mindful of that anyway.
Hmm. Hmm.
And it's true. There is a lot of fear mongering going on. We just want to provide information that that you should have in your back pocket. So there are, in fact, there's a website, folks, that you can go to find all of the known sundown towns in America. So there's some stories out there too, things that have happened as recently as 2021. And you got to remember, 2021, Joe Biden was president. So
That's right.
this is
That's right.
not anything new. It's just something that to be really mindful of as you move forward into what uh, the rhetoric and all of the other stuff suggests is going to be a rough road for people, for Black folks, and for
Yeah,
other folks as well. But right now, we're talking to Black folks.
absolutely. And you know, Stacy, we've got a rough road ahead, but our ancestors went down this road, and now is a great opportunity for those who are not familiar with the history of Black people as a race to become familiar, to educate yourselves. And those like you, me, and Greer and others listening who are familiar with that history to reread that history, because it's going to take faith and inspiration to get us through these next few years. And we have the obligation and responsibility not to lay down, especially at the Black press, but to reinvigorate, re-energize ourselves for the battle ahead, remembering that our ancestors went down this very same path years ago.
Yeah, and then so I am currently in both Facebook and Twitter and uh, YouTube. I am posting the site for the map where you can find sundown towns. It's
Hmm. Hmm.
justice.tougaloo.edu/map.
Hey
And it's
guys, so
there's
today I
Joy.
finally did something I've been meaning to do for a while. And the reason for doing it and kissing goodbye my 1.9 million followers over there is because I hadn't been posting for a long time. I just didn't want to contribute content once it was purchased by its present owner. But just having it there, I was only holding on to it um, because I, really didn't want someone trying to take over that name and using it for nefarious purposes. I was a little bit worried about that. And also every so often I would use it to just like sort of look at news that was trending and what's happening. And I would just sort of use it as like an aggregator, but I just realized that's not really worth it because in order to like do the news aggregation and just look at all, you have to wade through a lot of dreck and a lot of just abuse and a lot of just negativity, and it's just not worth it. And, I think that we sort of prioritize this, this idea of like follower count and these, it's become like a modern kind of, testament worth. And it really isn't, it's just about the quality of the interactions that you have and the communication that you have and what you can provide, the content that you feel like you can provide that's helpful. So one of the things that I really want to lean into on this app and on, the apps that I'm still on is what can I do to try to inform people about kind of the way that the system works, the way that the civics of the system works, because there's a lot that's going to happen in government over the next year that's going to be kind of terrifying, I think, to a lot of people. And I feel like the value that I can add is to say, look, here's how the system works. Here's how this governmental process works. And here's what you're facing and how to break that down for those of you who are not necessarily like cable news watchers, so that you just understand what's happening. Because kind of what is happening, I think, is going to shock a lot of people who either didn't vote for this at all because they voted for Vice President Harris to be president, or did vote for it, not realizing what they were actually getting, what they actually bought. Because what you actually purchased, if you voted for the person who's about to be president, is probably not at all what you were expecting. And so there's a lot that's going to happen, and a lot of things that just don't even sort of sit right or seem possible in America. And so I think that's the kind of value that I can add. And it isn't even about personalities or party. It's really about what is happening, what you're seeing, and how that affects you. So,
I have loved connecting with all of you on Twitter and then on X for all of these years, but it's time for me to leave the platform. I once believed that it was a place for honest debate and discussion, transparency and free speech, but I now feel it does not serve that purpose. In addition, starting this Friday, November 15th, X is implementing new terms of service, which among other things states that, quote, all disputes be brought exclusively in the U.S. District Court for the Northern District of Texas or state courts located in Tarrant County, Texas, end quote. The full terms of service can be found on my written statement or on the X website. Now, as the Washington Post recently reported on X's decision to change the terms, this, quote, ensures that such lawsuits will be heard in courthouses that are a hub for conservatives, which experts say could make it easier for X to shield itself from litigation and punish critics. I think that speaks for itself. You can find me on YouTube at the Doc.
So just I'm gonna get to that in just a quick second, but I just wanted to also highlight something Joni King wrote. She says, please, if you reside in the HOA, check your bylaws on that too. Folks are jumping over to Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. Also, I'm also on, and I encourage folks to download and join the Bring the Noise app, social media app, Chuck D's social media app. It is phenomenal. It is absolutely phenomenal. You don't have to worry about copyrights. You don't have to worry about the stuff, certainly the stuff you see on Twitter or X. It is a great platform. You can stream there as well. It's a Black-owned platform. How about that? Of course, there is what's the gentleman's name, Greer? Got the famous name. He's a child with his own social media app, Isaac Hayes. It's his app. But I like and I really like Chuck D's Bring the Noise app and Isaac Hayes' fan base.
Stacey, are you going to leave
as well?
Are you going to leave those apps, or have you decided? Or
Twitter, yeah, I'm not gonna go. As Don Lemon pointed out, that whole new thing there, and Twitter has been. You got to go through so much smut. It's like I remember when I was a kid, growing up, teenager, so it didn't bother me that much. You go to a newsstand and you look for newspapers, a newsstand in New York, and before you got to like the Daily News, the New York Post, there was Playboy and there was Penthouse and all that stuff. You know, that's Twitter. You got to go through all of that, and in addition to vile comments and stuff like that, and all of this disinformation just to get to, a kernel. I think the only real news on Twitter is what we put on there, what the black press puts on there, and what people like Roland Martin put on there. Elon Musk has done exactly what he wanted to do with Twitter. He bought Twitter. People went, well, why would he pay all that money to buy Twitter? Well, we see the result. We see why. Mike V says the raunchiness of it all. And that's the thing. You have to, if it's not for mental health, if it's not for anything else, you have to disassociate yourself with garbage. And we are past time. Playtime, as Eddie Murphy said years ago, playtime is over.
Exactly. But I want to push back a bit. And I hear what you're saying, Stacey. But if we remove ourselves from these sites, who's going to be there to tell the truth?
Oh, I think that's a lost cause on Twitter. I really believe that's a lost cause on Twitter, unless and until Elon Musk gives it up.
Sells it, yeah.
I think it's a lost cause. I think, and these new, do you want to be placed under these restrictions that you do? He basically, it's open
Clearly,
season on whomever.
exactly.
I mean, we're getting enough heat we're going to get enough heat in these next 4 years from the White House and from the administration and from Congress, an unchecked Congress, an unchecked Senate, and an unchecked Supreme Court. We need to go somewhere. This is the problem. This is the thing. We need to have our own community. That's the only thing that's worked, right? Ever when it comes to Black folks. It's that strong community has pushed through the worst of times and has give birth to this is why we have white supremacy, because of how great Black folks are. Think about it. Everything. Beyonce, they went crazy when Beyonce, they wouldn't give her no country music honors. Went crazy about her in country music. You know why? Because you see, Black woman, Black person, do it better than you. Right? Elvis the King, Michael Jackson comes along, right, and says, excuse me, king of what?
Yep. Watch
There's
this.
no comparison. Boxing, you just name sports, music wise, artiste wise, everything. And so people say, well, the reason why the rise of white supremacy now is because they fear that we're going to be the majority come 2045 or whenever that is. No, it's always been there because of the fact that overall, and it's a very racist statement I'm going to make, but I think it's very true. I mean, we are just more talented, we're more athletic, we're smarter, and they want to suppress all of that.
And yeah, you're right. And now the excuse is
a conqueror writes history. They came, they conquered, and they wrote. Now you don't expect people who came to invade us to write the truth about us. They will always write negative things about us. And they have to do that because they have to justify their invasion. We don't write our history. It has always been handed down to us orally by our elders. Of course, the white man came and he writes history. In fact, you don't know anything about any place until the white man gets there. Until the white man comes to any place, nothing lives. It's only when he comes and says, "Boof, I've discovered you, now you exist," which is ridiculous.
Absolutely.
Exactly. You know what was galling to me? And folks say, well, why? It's a tradition. Yesterday's White House meeting between Trump and Biden. This idea of welcome back. Biden says welcome back, and no, there's no welcome back when you feel when you have such supposedly have such odds, such a distance in what you believe and what he believes supposedly. And what I said, and you can read this in the Washington Informer, is what you saw is a meeting of privilege. Two powerful, wealthy, elderly white men being very cordial, sitting in front of a fireplace. And Biden, his goal was to try and encourage Trump on climate, maybe some other things, but nothing about civil rights.
And Stacey, in all honesty, this meeting between President and President-elect was no different from the meeting that President Obama had with then President-elect Trump in November of 2016. Trump is there listening. He's not paying attention, not taking seriously what President, he was not taking seriously what President Obama or President Obama said. I mean, think about it. Do any of us really think that after that Oval Office meeting yesterday, that's when Trump went to wherever wherever he was on his next stop, and decided to appoint Matt Gaetz as Attorney General and Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence or whatever that agency is. These are decisions that were already made. So that was just a formality. It was just a victory lap
exactly.
For Trump yesterday. Nothing more, nothing less.
Exactly. And here's my point though. And nothing, you're right. I'm not in any way suggesting that anything Biden would have said could influence this man. Why even have the meeting? Why give him that? He walked out on you 4 years ago. He didn't
Yep.
he didn't have that meeting with you 4 years ago.
Mhm.
Um, it's not a tit for tat thing. It's about, when are you going to stand for something? That's the problem I have with this. When stand for something.
Agreed.
Colin
Agreed.
Kaepernick took a knee and gave up his career,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Stand for something. That's
And
the bottom line.
yep. And had President Biden not done that meeting yesterday, it was not, whether he did or didn't, it's not going to change President-elect Trump's agenda, domestic or foreign. So he very well could have, he called him, which I was annoyed at. I mean, I understand why he did it, but he called him to congratulate him. The vice president called to congratulate. I mean, everybody knows that
They
the
also did
calls
that
were
too soon,
not,
if you
were
ask me.
not
Not that.
genuine, and they were not genuine.
Yeah, and they did that too soon too, if you ask me. Not that he, I'm not in any way suggesting that Trump didn't win. I mean, he trounced her, according to what we've seen. But this idea of calling him right away, then when you realize 15 million uh, Democrats, registered Democrats, didn't even cast a
Stayed
vote.
home.
You got, or at least is what they're telling you, 15 million didn't cast a vote. You got to say, okay, pause. Let me take a breath. Let me look at this. Let me get my weak attorney general to look at this. Let's, as a, Jamie Harrison, et cetera, et cetera, let's look at this. Let's make sure all the I's are dotted, because the man already told you that if it was the other way around, he was going to do it.
Nope.
This idea of playing nice, this is not a atmosphere, and it's not new, but it's not an atmosphere to play nice.
Mhm.
Trump said that yesterday, pretty much. We told
And
Biden that. He says, "Hey, I know it can't be nice at times."
4 years ago, uh, the Republicans are still complaining that even after their win last week, I'm getting text from Trump supporters who were still complaining about the election being stolen 4 years ago. So the same Democratic Party that they wanted us to believe had the smarts, the sophistication, the know-how to steal an election successfully, yet yet lose control of the House. So if you're going to steal, why not just steal the whole grocery store as opposed to taking just a few groceries? And this year, all of a sudden, we learned how we lost that ability to steal an election. And you notice you don't hear any Republicans talking about the election being stolen.
Yeah. Well, as always, we appreciate you so much, Austin
Absolutely, brother.
Cooper.
I appreciate you guys. Always good to see you, brother.
Yep. Love the shirt. Today, we're honored to have Dana Frank with us, USA best-selling author of Get Up and Get It, a Black entrepreneur's lessons on creating legacy and wealth, and the niece of the late, great Quincy Jones. Dana is an inspiring figure in the world of entrepreneurship, known not only for her commitment to financial empowerment, but also for her dedication to fostering generational wealth and resilience within minority communities. Her book captures valuable insights drawn from her own experiences and from the legacy of her beloved uncle, a visionary in the music industry and a lifelong advocate for equality. Through her work, Dana encourages others to create lasting legacies, build wealth with intention, and uplift their communities. Dana, we are thrilled to have you join Let It Be Known to share your wisdom and your journey. Welcome.
Good morning. Thank you so much for having me here. It's a thrill to be with you.
Absolutely. We kick it right off. Your book, Get Up and Get It, it's full of lessons on creating legacy and wealth. What inspired you, Dana, to share these insights, and what message do you hope your readers take away?
Well, Stacy, I'm a proud steward of a now third generation family business. And, the statistics say only 12% of family businesses make it to the third generation. And my journey began with my father in 1950. He came of age, 18, in his hometown of Detroit, Michigan, and his options were limited. My grandfather said, get a good job at either Chrysler or Ford. It was the time of segregation and Jim Crow laws. And my father looked at his friends getting up before day, putting in a double shift, 2, 3, 4 in the morning, and coming home at the end of 2 weeks with barely enough of a paycheck to put a decent meal on the table. And I call these individuals fire starters. And my father was just like, that's not the life I envision. And so he left Detroit with his van, his dreams, and his drums, and he came to Seattle, Washington. And in the Pacific Northwest, he just got busy. He lied about his age. He went to work in Seattle's vibrant jazz nightclubs. He enrolled in classes at the University of Washington. And one night on the bandstand, he found a regular that was a regular patron that was looking to sell his house. So my father, as he said, in 1950, 18 years old, he was black broke but not broken. He worked off the down payment, became the man's chauffeur, did his gardening, whatever it took. And in order to buy the home, he bought it on contract. And to pay the $48 monthly note, he subdivided the house and rented it out to his fellow students at the University of Washington. And then my mother and my father connected in 1954. My mom was in a beauty contest called Miss Bronze. And when she hit the stage in her white one-piece swimsuit and her gold high heels, she eliminated the competition.
Uh-oh.
And my mother was the second of a family of 8. So she was also a fire starter that knew she had to help support her family of birth. So my parents continued to invest in property, and for 19 years they purchased a property every year without any bank financing due to redlining.
Yeah,
So my
Dana, we,
childhood, uh-huh.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say my childhood was different than most. I grew up putting pickets on banks to amplify the injustice of redlining. And, the history and the story, I just felt it was something that needed to be shared with the community and tools on how they could invest and create their own wealth.
So, and you kind of started the answer to the next question I had anyway, because we hear a lot of stories when we go back from our community, like your story, where we had grandparents or parents who socked away some money. They invested wisely, and at a time where it was tough for African Americans, tough for women. Um, why don't we hear a lot of those stories today, or are
Stacey,
they just hidden?
I agree. And I use an acronym I call REAL in one of my teaching tools. And it's, the R is do your research. The E is expand your network. My network is my net worth. That's the most powerful tool in my toolbox. A is amplify injustice, which I'll get back to that. And L is leverage. And the A, in terms of amplifying injustice, it's June of this year. The story that was told about Dr. Raven Baxter, who bought her home sight unseen, brilliant neuroscientist. And when she went to visit her new home, which she was so excited about acquiring, the 82-year-old white lady said, "Oh, I didn't realize you were black. I'm not selling my home to you." So Dr. Baxter took it to her 168,000 social media platform and got her home. So I tell people, picketing is not something that we had to do in the past only. It was our version of amplifying the injustice. Today we have social media, we have other tools, but we must continue to share the information. One story that I share in the book is the story of uh, Jimmy Kennedy, and former NFL superstar. I read about him in the front page of the New York Times and how he was denied client privileges at his bank. And when he put his phone on record and walked away and went to the restroom, the conversation that happened said, "We don't bank with people that look like him." And he ended up suing and settling with the bank, and that's part of the reason that Chase committed $30 billion to bridge the racial financial wealth gap. So we have to understand that the importance of amplifying injustice when it's still happening today.
Yeah, and in your view, what are the foundational steps minority communities need to take to build generational wealth, and how can they overcome systemic challenges along the way? We know that a lot of challenges lie ahead.
I say research is so key. In my home state of Seattle, Washington, right now we have a program called the Covenant Home Ownership Act. That just got approved in July. And essentially they are helping first time black and brown homeowners to get into the game, because if they have relatives that have been in the community since 1968, they get down payment assistance and zero interest. So you've got to look at yesterday I was speaking at Towson University in Baltimore. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, take me and show me these $1 houses that are available, and I just think the thing is that that's where the real acronym comes in. Really do your research. There are programs that are available. If Chase and Citibank and all these banks have committed to bridging the racial financial wealth gap, so we don't have 74% of white families own a home compared to 45% of black families. That has to be done, and we have to do our research. We have to dig in. We have to ask the banks why, and leverage, network with people. Find a way to get into the game, because as I've seen my entire life, and what my parents taught me is cash erodes, equity grows.
Yeah, and financial literacy and stewardship are pillars of your message. Dana, what are some of the most important financial habits you recommend for young entrepreneurs starting today?
Work today like few are willing to, so you can live today like few can. My father had a saying, it's funny, but it's just because it's on your ass doesn't make it an asset. We all want the pretty nice things, but there's going to come a time for that. And work and save, get your credit score up and your debts down.
Yeah, that's always a fundamental part there. You talk a lot about building a legacy that goes beyond personal success. How can entrepreneurs ensure their work positively impact their communities and leave a lasting mark?
As I spoke earlier and talked about my network being my net worth, it's so important to give back. I constantly tell my now adult children that you can't receive with a clenched fist. And through my charitable outreach, I'm a long-term supporter of a foster children's program. I have an annual holiday party where my friends come and we bring gifts and fill the tree for kids in foster care. And through this organization, I have found friends and mentors and partners. Yeah, I support Mary's Place, a campaign whose mission is that no child sleeps outside. Same thing. I mean, there's so many opportunities to get involved and just meet like-minded people. And like I said, in the 1950s, when my parents weren't bankable, they often found bank-worthy partners that were able to put up the down payment. My parents did the labor, refinanced, bought their partners out, and moved on to the next deal. And through these charitable outreach programs, it's a treasure trove of connections and people that you can meet with that are like-minded that will invest. That's our
Uh, uh,
family
they-
home. Yeah.
yeah, isn't that something? Wow.
1964. My father was a real visionary. When he drove my mother down there and saw that house, it was something else. But
Do you
it's
go back sometimes and visit?
I do. I still live in the neighborhood, and that same property my father went on to build guest homes for me and my two older sisters, and we had a lot of great years in the swimming pool, and I mean it was overlooking Lake Washington. Beautiful, beautiful property.
Wow, you talk about it with such romance. So
Ah,
I
well,
can it just exudes from you. So
I just my passion so much is just letting people know that they can change the trajectory despite what their birth circumstances dictated. My mother's side of the family, I talk a lot in the book about my father, but my mother's side, my
we got you,
we,
Dana.
oh,
We
oh,
see you.
good. Okay. My mother's side of the family, as I said, she was the second of eight, and my grandmother was a lifelong domestic. My grandfather was a carpenter. And I look at my mom's side of the family, as you mentioned, my uncle Quincy Jones that just passed away. And Uncle Quincy left me with the words YOLO Coco. You only live once, so keep on keeping on. And the work ethic that was instilled in both sides of my family, not only my great uncle Quincy, but my uncle Richard, who's a federal judge, my aunt Marjorie J., who's the first African American flight attendant that Alaska Airlines would hire and retire. My mother, going into real estate now at 92, she still gets up and gets on it every day. That's part of the reason. That's why I entitled the book that. So having mentors is such a huge part of looking at people that have changed the trajectory and just saying, "Hey, I want to know how you did this."
Yeah. Couple of things. Dr. Nicole is asking, or she knows that she says, I wonder if these programs that you spoke about will that support minority ownership will survive the new administration. And Mike V adds that how do you navigate this society as a Black entrepreneur in a political climate that is hostile toward diversity and equity and access to capital? How do you navigate that?
So in 1989, my parents went through a divorce after 32 years. And it was pretty awful. And the courts appointed a receivership, and the receiver came in and they rented to any able-bodied person that was able to come up with the first month's rent. And so when my mother and I came out of the divorce as two single women, we faced a bunch of basically deadbeat residents. We had drug addicts, gang members, and it was a real challenging time. We also faced a recession. And bank after bank after bank told us to sell. And we knew if we sold, we'd be losing all of our equity with taxes and everything. And it just was not a consideration. And I always say, during those lean times, we ate lean cuisines, but you have to hold on and you have to believe in yourself. And again, we reached out, we demanded that we saw the bank president. Took a couple of months. They kept trying to pass us off on, lesser management, but we held on and just refused until we could see the president. And when we sat down and explained to him our circumstance, we were granted a moratorium. And that's essentially where we didn't pay a mortgage payment for 1 year. And we used all the rental income to infuse back into the properties. So you got to get creative, you got to be aggressive, and you just can't accept no. And like I said, there are programs that are available and you just have to resource and outreach and have them explain to you why you're being turned down.
Yeah, we're talking with Dana Frank, the best-selling author of Get Up and Get It, a Black entrepreneur's lessons on creating legacy and wealth. Um, the other part that we tend to overlook, especially in the in minority communities, is the wills. I was looking at a news report about your uncle, and it suggested that in his will, he left an exorbitant amount of assets and money to his children. Um, then we think about others who, like Aretha Franklin, they had to fight over that will. Michael Jackson, they had to fight over whether or not it's a real will. This idea of leaving a will, can you talk about that, please, and how important that is to have your assets in order?
I have no knowledge of what my uncle's will said. I know that he was a huge philanthropist in terms of global concerns. And for me personally, we've always had a family partnership agreement. And, it was really important for me that I wasn't raising trust fund babies. My children have worked
Mhm.
since they were able to walk. I mean, when I came out of the hospital, my son strapped him in the car seat and we went to show an apartment. I mean, they've known from early on, this is how we eat. And it's a privilege to inherit a family business. It's not something that just automatically goes to you. So I always tell other parents that are interested in going to work with their children to make sure that everybody's on the same team and that you start having them learn and work the business early. So you don't wait until they're adults and try to train something. I mean, it should be second nature, like brushing your teeth.
I like that. I'm not a trust fund baby. That
No,
is
no.
Dana is laying down the gauntlet. Like, listen, just so you'll know. But again, your book goes into a lot of really great information that we all need. We talked a little bit about financial literacy, but Dana, it's not really taught today as it used to be. Um, what would you advise educators and those who have the responsibility of either teaching young Black and brown kids or raising young Black and brown kids?
You know, I Damon John wrote the foreword to my book, and I specifically asked him to because uh, his story was so in alignment with something that I have such respect for, and that is, coming up, his mother had to bank on him because no one else would, and she refinanced her house and invested in her child. And Damon wrote a book called Little Damon Learns to Earn. And I was told him when that book came out, it's so important for brown children to see people that look like them, who are entrepreneurs, who are, creating their own future by their own terms. Each chapter of my book starts with a poem, and the poems I went back and I wrote them, to really, they call them social movement poems, but I feel like, it really does need to start at home. And we need to have, if you don't have the mentors in your house, pick a mentor, find one. I
Mm.
share several stories of different mentors of all different nationalities in my book, who I look up to, that I still call. Having a mentor doesn't just stop in childhood, it should continue on throughout your life.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely had to
And
ask a
if the
question.
teachers don't, if, to
Go
answer
ahead.
your question, if the teachers aren't teaching it, you got to go someplace to get it.
Yeah, yeah. And I totally agree with you that this starts at home. We have to be responsible for that as well, not just depend on the teachers at school who are overwhelmed themselves and overworked themselves. So it does. I agree 100% with you there. Got to ask you just one other question about your uncle. I'm sure you've had conversations over the years with him. Did he ever share thoughts on the responsibilities that come with influence and success, particularly for Black artists and entrepreneurs?
My uncle was genuinely the most generous, loving soul that I've ever encountered. I mean, he inspired me every day. I used to joke with him, and when we were kids growing up, and I said you'd come in the house like Smackwater Jack. I mean, he was so cool, just letting it all hang out. But every person that he encountered felt like they were the most important person in the world to him. And he took his time and, with just such grace and such giving, just such a remarkable human being. I mean, and that's the gift. I really genuinely have reflected this week on, sure, we cry because it's over, but we smile so heartily because it happened. And his music will live on in all of us, and his spirit. I mean, just such a blessing to have had him on this planet.
Yeah, it sounds like just based on what you've shared today, your father, your parents, you had a lot of really positive and strong influences throughout your life. Um, it takes a village, right?
Absolutely.
And so
Absolutely.
when you think about what you've taken from what you've been able to take from your parents, take from your uncles and others that you have learned from, um, how has that all of that shape your own approach to leadership and to advocacy?
Again, I think you cannot receive with a clenched fist. When I go to a homeless school and I teach kids how to play tennis, that's my passion, is playing tennis. I don't know if I'm putting that racket in the next Venus or Serena's hands. And I think we are all called. It's like Mother Teresa said, I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone and cause many a ripple. And every time I give, it comes back to me tenfold. And I genuinely just believe that if everybody just does a little bit, especially during these challenging political times and hardships that we're all facing, if everybody just says, "Hey, let me, add a dollar to this, request," every little bit helps. And I often tell people, they'll come to me and say, "Well, I don't have the financial means to donate." Your time is one of your most valuable assets. Give it up.
Mm, well, that is always th- that's always some timely advice that your time. Folks do ask that we encounter that a lot, right? Folks ask about what can they do, and time is, of course, a very valuable tool, and sometimes it's more valuable than money. Real estate has for a long time been the key to generational wealth. What new strategies are available or more accessible, um, or is real estate still the best way?
Real estate has never failed me. I'm in the process right now with my two adult children's buying another building. I mean, we certainly have gone through hardships, and there's been a lot of changes in laws that impact housing providers. And so you just have to be prepared to navigate them. But people also need to understand that, we're providing our sweet spot is providing quality, affordable housing. And so I've got residents that have been with our family for over 50 years. And, so it's an honor and a privilege to know that you're providing housing and a safe place for people to call home. And I love everything about real estate investing. I love the autonomy that it gives me with free time. I'm speaking with you today from Nashville, but my business is still running. And, just not being tied and tethered to a 9 to 5. I mean, that's definitely something that real estate will give you. And those are the tools that I try to share in the book. I mean, you wear many hats as a housing provider. There's some funny stories in there of people that we've encountered. But you learn to navigate it. And I'm a people person, so it's right up my alley. I enjoy it.
That's true. We have one of our newspapers are there, the Tennessee Tribune. Great newspaper there. You might see in the airport. There's a couple of Tennessee Tribune stores inside the airport. Um, the great,
Okay.
yes, the great Rosetta Perry is the CEO of the Tennessee Tribune. All in the Black Press of America's family of newspapers across the country. So it's good to know that you're in Nashville.
Yeah, I'm speaking tonight at the Soho House, and just making the rounds of sharing this story, because I really do feel that we've got to amplify our voices and just share the tools on, how you can change the trajectory of your life.
Yeah. And finally, Dana, Frank, again, just to underscore, and David Youngblood is asking about, we talked about younger ones, but what about older ones? Is it ever a point where it's just, you're just too old, or is it too late to try and obtain some sort of financial uh, wealth building?
It is never too late, ever. I just you might have saw the news yesterday. It said that my uncle has a new album coming out with Frank Sinatra that he worked on till the end. I mean, 91. As I said, my mother, 92 years old, she still gets up and gets on it every day. And I think I have the two acronyms actually. I have the REAL for building wealth, which we talked about, research, expanding your network, amplifying injustice and leverage. And I've got the REAL for building your health, and that's rest, exercise, keep your brain active. That's so important. And the L is listen to your body. And
Mm,
I just feel like my uncle said, live, laugh, love, and give every day. And for me, I utilize the three things that we always talked about: something to live for, something to love, and something to do every day.
yeah. And before we let you go, Greer is mentioning that you hang out with some powerhouses. She says, "How did you meet Sheila Johnson, the first African American female billionaire and co-founder of BET?" And you also have a podcast.
Yes, I'm not doing the podcast now because I'm just working really on getting the book out there and traveling. But again, expanding my network. Yeah, I read that Sheila was coming to Seattle. I was in Seattle and doing a talk at our town hall. And so I got there and met her and connected. And I mean, that's it. And people are afraid to ask, because they don't want to have
Mm,
rejection. And, you get past that. And so, another saying of my uncle's, you got to go to know. So I go to know, and I will find out where someone is and sit down and break bread if I can, and just have a conversation. I want to know what they know so I can grow.
I like that. You got to go to know. Um, Dana Frank, USA Today's best-selling author of Get Up and Get It, a Black entrepreneur's lesson on creating legacy and wealth. Um, Folks, go get that book. It's chock full of really, really great information. Particularly today, Dana, we need it today. We thank you for sharing this with Let It Be Known News. Really appreciate it. Hang on, Dana, as we go off the air. Our producer needs to wrap up with you.
Thanks,
Folks, we're
Stacy.
going to have some more great information tomorrow. We're going to finally bring you that conversation on multiple myeloma tomorrow. Very important conversation. So join us, and we'll see you then. Thanks for watching.